Right now on Upfront.
Convention Countdown.
It is unbelievable to see the turn of events.
Just hours until the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Wisconsin's delegation en route this weekend.
We see now a neck-to-neck type of race.
The Republican VP pick, J.D. Vance, in Wisconsin ahead of the convention.
Have you had that conversation with him, and does he need to pivot?
Now the big rally planned in Wisconsin, Vice President Kamala Harris in Milwaukee in the midst of it all. Our guest this Sunday, Democratic delegate and Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
The Trump factor. Having the endorsement of President Trump is an honor of a lifetime.
The impact on the hot primaries. Tony Weed, the political newcomer in the 8th Congressional, winning with Trump's endorsement. And now he's here with us one-on-one.
Battle for the Senate.
You know, he's got to stay focused on the issues.
The race officially solidified. Now the new insight, the battle for Wisconsin, the presidential race at the top. Jessica Taylor with a Cook Political Report. That new insight just moments away.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us just hours from the start of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Yet the spotlight again this week shining bright on Wisconsin. Just some 90 miles up the road from the United Center, the rally now planned inside Fiserv Forum with Vice President Kamala Harris Tuesday, the second day of the convention, and inside the same arena former President Donald Trump accepted the Republican nomination.
Ahead of it all, Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance in Milwaukee Friday. Former President Donald Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance at the Milwaukee Police Union headquarters, accepting the official endorsement of the Milwaukee Police Association, now less than 80 days from Election Day. A new ABC News poll putting Vance's favorability nationwide at 32%, below Governor Tim Walz, Vice President Kamala Harris's pick.
Well, look, I don't put much stock in polls, especially at this early level. I think Governor Walz was nominated just a couple of weeks ago. He's received a ridiculous media honeymoon where they've hidden, a lot of press have hidden some of the things that he's said and done.
Vance in Milwaukee, his second trip to the state after securing the nomination inside Fiserv Forum, is now a growing number of Trump allies urging the former president to stick to policy over personal attacks to win over key battlegrounds like Wisconsin.
He loses his point. Whenever you make it personal, you lose your point. Keep talking about policy. People get that.
Coming off just of everything you just talked about, it seems like some allies of former President Trump have said in recent days he needs to focus more on policy, just like you talked about, less personal attacks. I'm curious, have you had that conversation with him, and does he need to pivot, especially when you look to swing states like Wisconsin?
I don't think the president needs to pivot, and if I told him that, I can guess what he'd say. I think that the reason that President Trump has been so successful connecting with Americans is even when they disagree with something that he might say, they know that he just is who he is, right? I'd much rather have a political candidate who I disagreed with 25% of the time, but was a real human being and was willing to speak off the cuff, than to have somebody like Kamala Harris who hides behind a teleprompter and doesn't speak to the American people directly unless she's got a script in front of her telling her exactly what to say. I think the unscripted nature of President Trump is one of the reasons why his campaign gives a pretty good insight into the kind of president that he's going to be. Now, that said, we are focusing a lot on policy. We're here in Wisconsin today talking about public safety. I was in Pennsylvania yesterday talking about veterans issues. I was in Michigan the day before talking about how we have to stop the trade and energy policies that ship all of our manufacturing jobs to China. When Donald Trump was president, 12,000 American factories opened. The previous two terms, 60,000 American factories had closed. So we are talking about the policy and we're talking about the issues, and we're going to keep on doing that. But my only advice to my running mate is be yourself and let people see who you are. And I think he's doing that every day on the campaign trail.
Meantime, in Chicago, the primetime speakers list solidifying this weekend. President Biden expected to speak tomorrow night. Former President Bill and Hillary Clinton expected as well, alongside former President Barack Obama on Tuesday. Then, as is customary, Governor Tim Walz Wednesday and Vice President Kamala Harris Thursday night.
Let's bring in Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson, who will be there as a Democratic delegate and just coming off of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Mayor, it's always great to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with what your role will be during the convention this upcoming week.
Sure. So I will be a delegate at the Democratic National Convention. I'll go down and participate in everything that delegates do, and ultimately to support Vice President Harris's candidacy for president, making her the official Democratic nominee for president.
Should we expect you on the stage one of the nights of the convention? Will you speak?
Possibly. We've asked the questions, so maybe that'll happen. We'll see. It's still pretty dynamic, so we'll see what happens.
So do you know or don't know yet if you'll?
We're still talking, so I can't confirm or deny, but we'll see what happens.
Is that a big platform? Is that important for the mayor of Milwaukee for you to be up on that stage?
Oh, I mean, absolutely it is. If it were to happen. I mean, the fact that Milwaukee is being recognized nationally and even globally, especially after hosting the Republican National Convention, shining additional spotlight on our city. I think that's really, really important. That's what my whole desire was with bringing the RNC here in the first place, was to elevate Milwaukee, and I think we've been doing that.
Chicago now in the final hours of preparation before everything starts on Monday. We know some police firefighters from across the state will be in Chicago. Have you spoken with Chicago's mayor or any city officials, and what advice have you offered coming off the RNC?
Yes, I have had the opportunity to speak with Mayor Brandon Johnson about the upcoming Democratic National Convention and connected his staff with my own staff here in Milwaukee. It's about some of the things that we went through with planning the convention. One of the pieces of advice that I gave to the mayor and to the Chicago media was that it's probably really useful to host those early morning news conferences like I did each and every single day of the convention, so folks know what's going on, what to expect, you know, and the like. So we'll see if Chicago picks up on that and does the same thing.
Let's talk about Wisconsin's delegates, more than 100 of them, including the alternates. Is every single member of Wisconsin's delegation fully backing Vice President Kamala Harris?
That's probably a question more for the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin than myself. From what I understand or know, I would imagine that the answer is yes, or close to yes. I know that I certainly am, but I would ask Ben Wickler for that more detailed information.
Milwaukee, of course, in the spotlight. We now know that Vice President Harris will be here in Milwaukee on Tuesday in the midst of this for a rally, likely at Fiserv Forum. What new details do you have about that, and what's the importance of having a presence here in Milwaukee in the middle of the convention?
I'm learning information about the Vice President's visit just as it unfolds, just as it happens, like everyone else is. I'm excited that she's coming back to Milwaukee. So we'll see what happens there, too. I mean, I don't have all the answers to this because I'm not planning the things, but I'm looking forward to her presence here on the ground in Milwaukee, and I think it's important. You know, Democrats have been making early and often investments in this state, working to reach every single voter and not taking any votes for granted. And the Vice President has been here a number of times, showcasing to voters in Milwaukee and across Wisconsin that she values this state and she's looking to earn every single vote here. And I think that's a great thing.
Let's talk about Harris's VP pick, Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota. There's been a lot of attention on him and his record. Are you fully comfortable with how he handled the protests in Minneapolis in 2020 after the death of George Floyd?
Look, I think that Governor Walz has an exemplary record in Minnesota, and after the unfortunate event that happened in 2020 after George Floyd was killed, Governor Walz was one of the people in Minnesota that was pushing for police reforms, was pushing for body cams to be worn by police officers in that state. Those are things that we've done here and other communities have picked up on as well. So I'm comfortable with Governor Walz. I think he adds a tremendous value to this ticket.
What about some of the criticism over his military record?
Look, I think that anybody who puts on the uniform of our country and serves should be commended for doing that. I don't think that that is something that folks should be making an issue of. But I'll tell you this about Governor Walz. It was 24 years, well beyond the time that he was required to serve, that he put our nation's uniform on. And my understanding is that he submitted his retirement papers before there was even a decision for his troop to go overseas. So I think he served our country with valor, served our country with distinction, and I'm grateful that he put on the uniform of our country to serve.
President Biden will speak Monday night. You were one of many Democrats who backed him 110% until the moment he dropped out. Looking back, and as we sit here today, was he forced out of this race?
Look, I respected President Biden's decision to stay in the race when that was his decision. I respected his decision to step out of the race when that was his decision. I think the key word there was that it was his decision, ultimately. Nobody could say to Joe Biden that you have to come out. He had to make that decision himself. He made that decision himself because he knows what the goal is. He knows what the target is, and that's to make sure that we do not have Donald Trump back in the White House and have another 4 years of chaos and division in the United States. We can't afford it, and he made the ultimate sacrifice in service to this country in order to make sure that doesn't happen.
Would he have lost if he would have remained at the top of the ticket?
I don't believe that he would have lost had he remained at the top of the ticket. Certainly, it would have been close, probably even closer than what we'll see with the vice president. Not to say that this is not going to be a challenging race, because it always is, especially in a state like Wisconsin. I believe that as we get past Labor Day and folks start paying attention to the contrast between Democrats and Republicans, the record of Joe Biden, the record of Donald Trump when he was president, that folks ultimately would have come around to Joe Biden.
An incredibly busy week ahead, Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson. Mayor, thank you so much for your time, like always.
Thank you.
Up next, the Trump factor in Wisconsin, the big win in the 8th Congressional, the GOP battle to replace Mike Gallagher. Now the primary winner, Tony Weed, is here with us next.